Hello and welcome back to the sideboard here at SCG Orlando, the Legacy Open. I am joined by Jeff Paulus, who is currently undefeated.
That's correct.
With Enchantress.
Yeah.
Now, Enchantress is a deck that a lot of Legacy players have horror stories about, mostly because it often takes a long time to win.
Correct.
But this one doesn't, which is not only refreshing, but also serving you quite well today.
It is. That combo is the Rest in Peace Helm. It closed out the games early, allowing me to win within the time, which is always a problem for Enchantress.
Right, exactly. So we're talking about Rest in Peace, Helm of Obedience.
That's
which is a combo that's seen play in different shells.
Correct.
Blue-white-red control, blue-white control, even some sort of Enlightened Tutor package, maybe even an alternate win condition in Painter's Servant variants before, but not really in Enchantress before. You've sort of come up with this idea, molded the idea, talked about this a lot on the Source, actually.
That is correct.
Tell the folks at home where this idea came about and how you've developed it.
Well, it was actually at the spoiling of Return to Ravnica when Rest in Peace came out. I know I've been playing lists for a while that did not have Replenish in it. And the main reason most people say, well, why don't you play Replenish? And I was like, well, it's just kind of a win more card. Sometimes you can win through control with it. But when Rest in Peace was spoiled, it was actually an absolute definite reason not to play Replenish. And I just went all in and all the pieces started coming together. So from there, you know, a lot of people on the Source. I'm Fragile. There's a lot of other people that has been helping develop this deck, and we continue pushing it forward as best we can.
Excellent, yeah, and you've also got what I think is a very important piece of Enchantress decks that not everyone has adopted, which is 4 Enchantress's Presence.
Correct.
4 Argothian Enchantress,
Correct.
which are your 2 Enchantress effects that you really want because they dodge Swords to Plowshares and Lightning Bolts.
Correct.
And 4 Green Sun Zenith, which serve as Argothian Enchantresses 5 through 8.
Correct.
A lot of people skimp on the Green Sun Zeniths or eschew them entirely.
That is true.
Which I don't like at all, and obviously you don't either.
Well, right, because this is more of a combo version. As soon as you get the Enchantress going, it basically, especially against the control matchups, is important. And if they counter a first one, they counter the second one, you're definitely going to want all 12. Playing online a lot, I've learned that, and you just got to go for it.
Right, and the other thing about this version is Enchantress in general has a lot of cards like Wild Growth. And Utopia Sprawl, which are fake Birds of Paradise, that allow you to have 3 mana on turn 2.
Correct.
If you want it. So Green Sun Zenith for 2 on turn 2 happens a lot of the time. So you're able to get an Enchantress effect into play on turn 2 rather than having to wait till turn 3 pretty much anytime you want.
Right, and we talked about the 1 win condition, which is the Rest in Peace Helm combo. The other win condition I went with over many weeks of testing. Originally it was Sigil of the Empty Throne. I moved over to Emicrol because it's uncounterable. There's some times where somebody would just deck you would deck yourself because you'd be trying to resolve the win condition. Somebody would say, all right, I can't win the Enchantress War anymore, I'm just going to go for countering the wins. So Emicrol has been excellent there. With some turns, you know, using the now 4 main deck Sierra Sanctum, with the new legend rules, very beneficial. You can actually get Emicrol out very quickly. I've done it as early as turn 4.
Right, you can just tap a Sierra Sanctum for 6 or 5, and then play another one, tap another one, and with your other Wild Growths and whatever else you happen to have in play, it's pretty easy to actually get to 15.
Easily, yeah. Yeah,
especially when you're holding people off with a bunch of your other effects.
Right.
Enchantress is a deck that I think a lot of people, they know what the Oblivion Ring is for example. They know what Elephant Grass is for, even though it's not a super usual card.
Correct.
They understand that it's the propaganda effect to keep you from losing the game. Solitary Confinement with the Enchantress effects create the lock.
Right.
But there's another card in your deck that isn't really standard, I would say, in Enchantress decks, and that's Gitaxian Probe. I was a little surprised when I saw your 2 copies of Gitaxian Probe.
Right, I initially started testing 3 of them, and that gave me too much exposure to the fast decks like Burn or the Blue-Eye-Red Delver, or when somebody goes with the Geysir Saintraff, you're just doing too much damage to yourself. But the hand information is crucial. One thing I would find is that playing against the taxing decks like Rug Delver, things of that nature, you could win the game as long as you knew which order to cast things in. So the probe, with that hand information, you would know if you shouldn't run your Argothian into the snare or if you should play around the Pierce. So using that, it becomes very, very helpful. Actually, this last round, I saw my opponent just had the 1 counter spell. So it was a game of just, you know, basically dirtling until I got them to counter the one thing that would make them lock them out of the game, because at heart, Enchantress is a prison deck. So it would create the prison lock with Solitary Confinement. They went ahead and countered that. Then I went for the win with the Helm and got there.
Excellent, yeah. And so your sideboard pretty much shores up all of your regular matchups.
Correct.
But you have Stony Silence.
Right.
Which is a card that is much more popular in Modern, because Affinity is a much more popular deck there, but in Legacy it serves a somewhat different purpose.
Correct. It's a card that I shied away from actually putting in the sideboard for a long, long time. I really hate running the collateral damage that it turns off help. But in the matchups where you need it, it's just that powerful where you go for it. When playing against Miracles, for example, you take out the Helm package, and you go, because it's counterable, and you just go all in on Emrakul. That way, if Emrakul gets discarded, whatever, goes to the graveyard, it's going to shuffle back in the library, you just keep on going. With Rest in Peace out, it's exile. So then that's when Stony Silence comes in, so that you can get the, their top, and it makes the counterbalance top combo so much worse.
Yeah, and it also turns off their helms if they happen to keep them in the deck. Right. Also has nice collateral effect against blue-black Tezzeret.
Correct.
Even if you run into Affinity or something like that.
Or any of the Lotus Petal, Lion's Eye Diamond-based combo decks.
And we've seen a couple Metalworkers in the room today as well. Yes. So being able to shut all those off is super helpful. Speaking of accidentally shutting off your Helm of Obedience with your own sideboard, you have one copy of Gadok Teeg in the sideboard for the unfair decks, because you can Green Sun Zenith for it. You have Gadok Teeg, and that's your only other Green Sun Zenith target. A lot of people will fill up their deck or their sideboard with one of tutor targets when they have a tutor effect as powerful as Green Sun Zenith. But you've decided to not do that. Why is that?
Well, frankly, if I could play all the Magic cards, if I could play 90 in the sideboard, I would. But obviously, you only have 15. In Gadok Teeg, you get a lot of mileage out of it. For example, I've noticed, at least playing online, it seems like when you play against Show and Tell, they expect the O-rings coming in, they expect some sort of permanent to give them a hard time, so they either board it out or board some of them out, maybe not all of them. And when Gadok Teeg comes out, they can't really do much. They can't get their sneak attack into play, they're going to have to hardcast Emrakul or hardcast Fizzlebrand. Many times you'll just get a concession off of that. It's also good against any of the big dig cards like Ad Nauseam. It's also good against Time Spiral. So it's just something else that they have to, combo decks have to deal with before they can go off. And that's exactly what Enchantress needs. It's just that time to dig its heels in and then basically push you out of the game.
Well, with the introduction and the success of the True Name Nemesis decks in Legacy, players have had to sort of adapt and change to fight on a different axis if they don't play with True Name Nemesis themselves. Right. Last week we saw a Jund Depths deck fighting on a completely different axis. This one fights on a completely different axis from that. I think it actually probably has a good matchup against the Jund Depths deck by accident, pretty much. And so this looks like a pretty good choice for this tournament. And you're undefeated. I'm sure we'll see you later on, and we'll be keeping track of your tournaments.
Hopefully I stay lucky.
So thanks for joining me in the sideboard. We'll be back here from Star City Games Orlando all day with more action from Cedric and Patrick in the booth.